Tao Meeting Archives, August 23rd, 2015. The Big Secret by Bill Bunting.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting beginning ritual, everyone. 起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加各位点传师一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
And good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever it is you all happen to be. It's a wonderful sunny day in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's just a great day to be alive. It's going to start getting cold here soon, and so fall's going to be on. The leaves will start to turn, and the pumpkins will start to ripen, and we'll be heading towards winter. And I kind of always enjoy watching the seasons change, although I have to confess that I could be good for 3 flakes of snow around December and then not see another one until next year. I keep threatening to move to Florida. Wonder why I haven't done that yet. Anyway, that's not why we're here. Today I'm going to share with you the big secret of Tao cultivation. I know that may sound surprising, but I'm actually going to do it. We're going to talk about the big secret. The reason we need to have this discussion is because there is a large and ever-growing segment of our population that is always looking for an edge. A better answer, a faster answer, a cheaper answer, something to provide them with an advantage over their fellow man in the competition to earn a living or garner material wealth or friends or whatever. And it seems that that particular philosophy of existence is pandemic, and probably has been for as long as human beings have been able to think on this planet. The competition for food, mates, shelter, that sort of thing has gone on for time immemorial. But this is a different flavor of looking for an edge. This isn't just the day-to-day competition for food and resources. By and large, in the human species, that direct competition died out millennia ago, as we learn to cooperate and form societies and civilizations. This is more looking for an advantage, an edge, a perception of some kind of hidden knowledge that one wouldn't normally find in the mundane secular existence. It's a search for the miraculous cure, the magic bullet to the ails of the world, or if not the world, at least to the ails of the individual. In some cases, it's evidenced by treating the ancient teachings of traditional Chinese medicine, for example, or Tai Chi Chuan, as absolute, in an extremist sort of a frame of mind that excludes any and all other potential paths of benefit and help. Its trademark is that kind of extremist thinking, and it is full of self-professed gurus, masters, and teachers, all of whom, as I say tongue-in-cheek this morning, have a corner on the big secret to living life successfully. I talk my way around the modern New Age movement fairly frequently, because very frequently it has the flavor, if you will, of Tao understanding, but lacks the depth and the essence of true Tao cultivation. And because of the language and cultural barriers between East and West, it is not difficult to snow other people with supposed wisdom and ancient mysticism that doesn't make any sense, stand up to the scrutiny in the light of day, or hold any kind of water philosophically speaking, and yet because people don't know any better, they flock to this mystic sounding secret knowledge in droves. Understand that this search for that great secret wisdom by and large exists to give an individual the appearance of knowledge and wisdom. It exists to serve the ego needs of an individual rather than to serve the needs of the people that are supposedly being taught. It serves a flavor of a spiritual quest that lacks the substance of true spirituality, and very often contain a number of extraordinary claims of abilities and knowledge that far transcend the abilities of mortal men. It is wise for us to remember, particularly when someone advertises something that appears to be just too doggone good to be true, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. And yet, for a plethora of reasons, people seem to flock to this kind of thinking without the extreme evidence indicated as being necessary by the claims. It causes me to ask the question, is there some aspect of the human mind that craves a need to be somehow different or somehow special, somehow set apart from everyone else? As well as participating in this Tao study group, I spent the last 12, 15 years teaching Tai Chi, and I've come across more than my fair share of folks who fall into this particular line of thinking. I have actually been told that I have aliens encircling my head, and that the person who told me that I have aliens encircling my head could in fact see them. To this very day, I have yet to see any of these aliens that are encircling my head, and I sure hope I don't hurt them while I'm shaving or showering. But so far, I don't think I've knocked any of them out of orbit either. That's a really extreme and really very humorous statement made by somebody who was absolutely 100% serious about having made it. But it just goes to illustrate the lengths to which some folks will go to be special in their own minds. Now, to be sure, in the practices of many martial sciences, there are secrets to be kept. There are in my school as well. And those secrets are there for good reason, to prevent folks who have not sufficiently matured their training from getting a hold of the knowledge required to cause severe injury or harm to another person or to themselves. There is such a thing as transferring knowledge when it's appropriate, when a person demonstrated a worthiness to possess that knowledge. And I think Sifu Ed would probably agree with me in terms of that philosophy. I believe Derek would as well. But that is not to say that it's a secret that defies understanding or education. There is nothing magical or supernatural about any of those secrets. There is simply understanding and practice, years of practice. When it comes to Tao cultivation, real Tao cultivation exists in very much the same way in the mundane day-to-day lives of Tao cultivators all over who understand that the truth of Tao cultivation is found in a life skillfully and well lived, and not in some 30-minute lecture by some guru somewhere who says that for the mere sum of everything you own in this world can impart some kind of enlightenment to you that you couldn't find some other way. In point of fact, cultivating the authentic Tao teachings is a simple and straightforward process that requires no more than a willingness to get up every day and walk the path. Realizing that every day we get up to walk the path, we're probably going to fall down somewhere. And when we do, we get back up, dust ourselves off, and keep right on going. It relies on our own common sense and intuition to tell us whether or not we are making wise choices and good decisions. And it should send up huge alarms anytime someone says that there's some mystical or ethereal practice, discipline, activity, or teaching that for the mere sum of all the money you happen to have will somehow instantaneously enlighten you. I'm here to tell you that with precious few exceptions, none of which originate with human beings, I don't think, instantaneous enlightenment is not something we should expect. And I only use the term with rare exception to refer to individuals like Gautama, who was enlightened underneath a Bodhi tree, or Siddhartha, who, although he started out as a prince, became an ascetic and spent a lifetime seeking enlightenment. In his case, it wasn't instantaneous, perhaps, but it has happened. Do I think it's going to happen to me? Probably not. I'm probably going to spend this lifetime and several other ones trying to acquire the knowledge necessary to become enlightened. I hope one day to have the privilege of being a bodhisattva, to help other people find enlightenment before I get to wander off of this planet and stay wherever enlightened beings go. Real Tao cultivation is forgiving of others, but extremely demanding of the self. It requires not only the desire for ruthless self-introspection, but the ability to conduct such ruthless introspection. It requires brutal self-honesty and awareness of what our faults are so that we can work on correcting them, where we can see the shortcomings in our own lives and apply some effort towards making those shortcomings less apparent and perhaps overcoming them, one day. And heaven knows I have a bag full of them to work on. So I don't think I'll be out of cultivation-related activities anytime soon. I certainly haven't found anybody who with a phrase or a word or a wave of their wand could instantaneously transform all of those shortcomings into remarkable strengths. For some reason in my life, that's been sorely lacking. I promise all of you that the very same set of circumstances is going to exist. Real Tao cultivation is consistent and constant in nature, and it occurs over time. None of us is imbued with the wisdom and knowledge to fully understand the Tao path the day we start. Some folks who have been fortunate enough to be raised inside the authentic Tao teachings perhaps have a leg up on that understanding because they've been exposed to the teachings for a long period of time, because they've had examples in the way of their parents and other relations and people they've known to follow. But here in America, those relations and individuals may be few and far between and difficult to find. It's one of the reasons the temple in LA is such a blessing, and one of the reasons why I continue to participate in the study groups. You know, forging a path for the authentic Tao in the American Midwest is not the most popular or easiest activity on the face of the planet. It is, however, one that I feel is desperately necessary. And despite the fact that this isn't the biggest facet of our particular golden thread, I think the work that we do here is important. And we reach people one person at a time. Like I said, it's a process of consistency and constancy, matured with education over a period of years. Real Tao cultivation takes time to master. It takes time to mature. It takes multiple iterations sometimes of the very same lessons to understand the deeper meaning in the teachings. There are precious few teachings in the Tao Te Ching that when I read them over and over and over again, I don't receive additional wisdom from, simply by virtue of the fact that as I evolve, the way that I understand the teachings also evolves. That the more I learn through both training and practical experience, the more I'm able to glean from the words of Lao Tzu. However, fairly frequently as well, there are times where I look at the same passage over and over and over again, wondering what in the world did he mean when he wrote that? There are some of those where, without Derek's rather excellent explanations and an awful lot of reading and study, I still wouldn't get it. And there are some of them where I still don't. I just haven't reached the point in my cultivation yet where the light bulbs come on and the understanding has been transferred. But that's okay. I'm willing to wait. Real Tao cultivation takes practice to master. Just like the martial practices that folks here are so enthusiastic about becoming involved in, there's no progress through the ranks of martial sciences training without a lot of practice, a lot of diligent practice, a lot of practice by oneself and not just in a class setting. And for those who understand the need for that kind of a practice and that kind of a commitment, then there are great things that can be done through those disciplines. But most of the time, folks show up once or twice a week and then forget about it when they're not, in the middle of a training scenario. Approaching the practice in that manner only means that it could take forever to achieve any kind of rank or mastery of the techniques and philosophies taught, but it's still the most common approach. Tao cultivation works exactly the same way. You get out of it what you put into it. You get to understand what you've managed to apply. And sometimes the application just plain isn't going to work the first couple of times out because there is missing information, things we don't understand yet. And so we go back and we learn some more and we practice some more and we work some more. And eventually we get it right. I've dedicated an entire lifetime to the understanding of the martial sciences that I practice. I'm applying exactly the same discipline and exactly the same techniques to the study of the Tao teachings. It isn't something that I do once or twice a week. It's something I do every day, all day long. Don't always get it right, but I always do my best. And I never stop and I don't quit. Along the lines of clearing up some additional confusion, The disciplines of Taiji Chuan and Qigong and various forms of meditation and other Eastern disciplines and the Tao studies are all somewhat related. And as far as Taiji Chuan and the earliest Qigong practices that I'm aware of in Tao studies are concerned, they all have a common point of origin in or around the Wudang Mountain Temple, because the Tao philosophy was utilized in the construction of the practices of Wudang Mountain Taiji Chuan and Qigong. And so there's a natural fit between the Tao philosophy and Tao cultivation and the practices of Taiji Chuan, particularly at the more advanced levels of practice and in the practices of Qigong. However, that does not mean that those disciplines are required or prerequisite to cultivate and understand the Tao teachings. They are not, nor are they the same as. And so although they share perhaps a common origin and a common philosophy, it's important to understand that they're not all the same. Buddhism, for instance, is also an Eastern discipline, but it absolutely is not Tao cultivation. Now, there are a lot of people who derive a great deal of help, assistance, and spiritual fulfillment from those practices, and that's neither inappropriate nor wrong. They're just not the same things. And so for one to attempt to bundle all of those things together under some imaginary umbrella of pursuing enlightenment probably is not the best or most effective use of the philosophy or the skills. It's important to understand that. It's also true that very many of us came into the Tao teachings via a martial path. I absolutely did. I've been training since I was 13 years old. And although while I was much younger, I wasn't perhaps necessarily as aware as I am now of the need for the spiritual path within the martial path. At some level, I absolutely knew that the hard external arts did not contain the answers I was looking for. I excelled at them, especially when I was young, thin, and good looking. But they didn't have the answers I wanted. They didn't have the answers I needed. And over the years, finding any of the external schools, Taekwondo or Karate or what have you, that will even approach the spirituality is extremely difficult, because the spiritual aspects of the training, well, they just don't sell lessons here. It may be different in New York or LA, although I suspect that it probably is not. But here in the Midwest, people are afraid of having religion peddled to them. They're afraid that any kind of a discussion on spirituality as it pertains to the martial path will in some way alter or harm their children and the students. And for that reason, they've largely been dropped from the teachings, which is a shame. But you kind of halfway have to understand it, because the folks that run those schools all need to earn a living too. I just preferred a much deeper understanding. And so in my life, the practices of traditional Chinese medicine and Taiji and Qigong, those things to me are powerful adjuncts to the study of the Tao disciplines. I understand that to truly understand the practice of Taiji Chuan, one has to understand a certain amount of Taoist philosophy. It is not possible to achieve a deep understanding of Taiji Chuan and Qigong without it, particularly not at the advanced levels. I think there is tremendous wisdom in the holistic approach to taking care of an individual that's evidenced in traditional Chinese medicine. I also believe this is the 21st century, and if you're having crushing chest pain and you can't breathe, you probably ought to go to an emergency room, because nothing beats a good MRI. It is important to keep these disciplines and their education in their proper place and attached to their proper level of importance. There's a lot we can learn from them, but to embrace those to the exclusion of all other modern knowledge and wisdom is to sell oneself unbelievably short in a number of life disciplines, healthcare being only one. I would not be sitting here talking to you right now if I had had my first heart attack 5,000 years ago. I just would have dropped dead. But because my cardiologist was well educated and had a lot of technology at his disposal, I'm now the proud owner of 5 cardiovascular stents, 3 in my left circumflex artery and 2 in my right coronary artery. And the whole reason I know where they are is because I got to watch him put them in on the fluoroscope. I tell people this word for word, okay? I do. When they talk to me about the practices of traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and those sorts of things, I tell them they have tremendous benefits. And Western medicine is finally catching on. But if you're having a heart attack, you need to go to the emergency room, because nothing beats a good MRI. To have someone completely discount modern wisdom and knowledge as being somehow flawed because it was acquired in the modern era is a mistake. And unfortunately, that same philosophy is out there. I don't know what it is that makes a person think that they shouldn't avail themselves of every conceivable beneficial, life-affirming practice and vehicle that's available, to the exclusion of their health and well-being. I don't believe there is anywhere in the Tao teachings where it says that we have to shorten our lives by countless years to embrace a philosophy that existed before people even understood the nature of the circulatory system, for instance, in the human body. That to me just doesn't make any sense. It's also extremely important not to ignore both ancient and modern wisdom for the sake of purely academic knowledge. Knowledge without wisdom is kind of like a sharp knife without the skill to cut the vegetables. You can have the world's sharpest knife, but if you can't keep your fingers out of the way, it doesn't do you much good. So what's the big secret? The big secret to Tao cultivation, guys, is there is no big secret. Anybody who tells you there is deceiving you, either out of ignorance or intent. Don't ever let anybody tell you that there's some great big huge all-encompassing enlightening secret out there that's going to in some way, shape, or form transform you immediately, because there isn't. There is the day by day practice and learning that goes along with Tao cultivation, where our minds and our spirits evolve to understand the things that we cannot currently get our heads around. But it's not magic, it isn't supernatural, it's not unfathomable or unreachable. It simply requires education and practice. The neat thing about the authentic Tao teachings, unlike some of the martial teachings, is that they are freely available to anybody who wants them. Derek and I have said repeatedly and demonstrated over the years that we're more than happy to share these teachings with anybody who wants them. It only takes an email or a phone call or a visit to the temple, and anyone who wants to walk the path will be gladly helped to find it. It's also really important not to confuse other Eastern disciplines with Tao cultivation. I can understand why that occurs, and I have a dickens of a time unentangling some of those things with folks who are new to the Tai Chi school or to the Tao study group, either one. But with a little time and a little patience, we get the job done. The fact that they're related doesn't mean they're synonymous, and it doesn't mean that you got to do them all. The important thing is to cultivate the philosophy, to understand what it means to you, and to use that to help you in your day-to-day life. If it doesn't practically work for you, then it's not doing you a lot of good. And I'd suggest that if it isn't working, then you go find something better that does. You know, ultimately, we have a huge responsibility to ourselves, because nobody really dictates a dogma or a doctrine to us, to discover what is the truth, and to discover that as deeply as we possibly can. That's not the job of a teacher or a master or one of our older Tao brothers and sisters to do for us. That's our job, to look past the words and into the deeper meaning, to look past the opinions of others and deeply into what resonates within us, to look past perhaps what people say has worked for them, to what it is that illuminates and brings forth our true self, so that we become our highest and best selves, so that we're able to set the example that other people will choose to follow. Because we can only cultivate the teachings for ourselves. We can't lecture somebody else into doing it for themselves. That doesn't work. When we cultivate the teachings properly, then other people naturally kind of want to find out what's going on in our lives. Maybe at first because they think we're weird, but eventually because they figure out we're different. And people that have known me for a long time know that I've changed over the years. Now, hopefully they know for the better. It's a kind of a neat thing. I know I'm on the right path because I hear from people in emails and here and there where they said that something I've said or something I've done or something I've intimated to them has helped them get down the same path that I'm walking. I look for those synergies that occur to let me know that I'm going the right way, and they do regularly. Hopefully, on these Sunday afternoons in Indianapolis, I'm able to say something that also helps you to do the same thing. Thanks very much for letting me chat with you, and have a wonderful Sunday.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting closing ritual. 起立，面向佛堂，持架三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位点传是一鞠躬，结班一鞠躬。Okay, guys, we are done.
Join the Tao meeting live to participate in the questions and commentary. For more information, go to http://taoism.net/tao/connect-online.